My name is Vivian Blake, and for most of my life, I've been the invisible thread holding my family together. Not that they ever said thank you. I'm 38 now, living in Asheville, North Carolina, working in financial consulting. I have a quiet apartment, a cat named Jasper, and a bookshelf that makes me feel less alone. But none of that mattered back in the Blake family home. There, I was never the daughter. I was the backup parent, the unpaid therapist, and more recently the family bank. Growing up in Raleigh, I was the eldest of 3. My brother Nathan could do no wrong. My sister Jenna was the delicate one, always needing to be protected. And me. I was useful. I packed school lunches, coordinated carpool, stitched Halloween costumes, and learned early on that love in our house came with conditions. Mostly be helpful, stay quiet, don't ask for anything. I thought things would change when I left for college. They didn't. I was still the one expected to pick up the pieces. When Jenna maxed out her credit cards in grad school, I paid them off. When Nathan's car broke down 3 states away, I wired the money. My parents called it helping out. But no one ever asked how I was doing. They only called when they needed something. Still, I showed up. Every Thanksgiving, I carved the turkey, cleaned the dishes, smiled through the subtle jabs. It wasn't warmth that brought us together, it was the performance. One big stage of tradition and pretend. I stayed quiet, even when it hurt. Until last year. It started small. A message in the family group chat from my aunt. Can't wait to see everyone this Thanksgiving. I replied cheerfully, looking forward to it. Then, silence. Hours passed. Then a private message from my cousin. Wait, are you actually coming? Your parents said you weren't invited this year. My stomach dropped. I called my mother. She said they were keeping it small this year, just immediate family. I remember the pause before I replied, I am immediate family. Her voice tightened. It's just easier this way, less tension. There hadn't been any tension, unless she meant me finally saying no. Like when I refused to pay for Nathan's new transmission, or when I didn't bail Jenna out of her wedding debt. But even then, I hadn't expected this. They'd uninvited me, quietly. After all I'd done. After all I paid for. And as I sat in that silence, I realized I was still paying for everything, just no longer welcome at the table. After I hung up the phone, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the steam rising from my cup of cider. I kept replaying her words, just immediate family. I was still trying to process it when it hit me. Wait a second. 2 weeks before, my father had called and casually asked if I could chip in a little for Thanksgiving this year. I'd said yes, of course. Like I always did. But I hadn't just chipped in. I'd covered the entire thing. The turkey had been ordered from Red Maple Butchery, my mother's favorite boutique butcher. The sides and desserts came from Magnolia Pine, the bakery she claimed made the only pumpkin pie worth serving. I had made all the calls. I had placed every order. I had paid every invoice. The bill came to over $1,800, and it was all under my name. I realized then, they hadn't just excluded me. They'd used me. They had accepted the money, accepted the food, accepted the convenience. But when it came to the seat at the table, they pretended I didn't exist. And that's when the anger finally caught up with me. Not loud, not wild, cold. Controlled. Sharp? I picked up my phone and called Red Maple first. Hi, I need to cancel an order for the Blake family. The woman paused, checked the record. Is this Vivian? Yes, I'm the one who paid for it. Refund processed in 5 minutes. Next, Magnolia Pine. A little trickier, they had a holiday policy. But once I forwarded the receipt with my card information, the manager agreed to cancel. She sounded a little surprised. I imagined she assumed I'd be at the dinner too. When I hung up, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Let them figure it out. Thanksgiving Day arrived. At 12:17 p.m., my phone rang. Dad. I let it ring 4 times before answering. The food never came, he said, his voice unusually shaky. In the background, I heard murmuring, plates clinking, hushed panic, someone whispering my name. I leaned against my counter and took a slow sip of cider. Oh, I said. Maybe check with whoever placed the order. You did, he snapped. Did I? I let the silence stretch just long enough to sting. I assumed you didn't need anything from me. Silence, thick, heavy, uncomfortable. That was when the messages started rolling in. My cousin texted, "There's literally no food here." Someone else wrote, "Your mom locked herself in the bathroom. Jen is crying." Apparently my sister had brought a new boyfriend she wanted to impress. He left early. My uncle asked loudly across the room, "Didn't Vivian order the food?" No one answered. I imagined them all, dressed up, sitting around the long oak dining table, staring at empty plates and cold silverware, the golden centerpiece mocking them from the center. For the first time, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. I wasn't there. And it felt right. They could have had me at the table, but they chose to erase me. So I let them taste what life without me actually felt like. In the days following Thanksgiving, I expected silence. What I didn't expect was the smear campaign. It started with whispers texts from extended relatives asking if I was okay. Some were genuinely confused. Others were more pointed. "Heard you had a rough Thanksgiving. Your mom said you're going through something." Going through something? Apparently my mother had begun rewriting the narrative. According to her, I'd suffered a breakdown. That I'd sabotaged Thanksgiving out of spite. That I needed help. The part that stunned me wasn't that she lied. It was how quickly people believed her. I didn't defend myself. I didn't beg anyone to believe my side. Instead, I crafted a single message in the family group chat. "Hey everyone, just wanted to clear up some confusion. I'm doing well. No breakdowns, no drama. It's been an interesting holiday season, but I'm genuinely in a good place. Hope you all are too. Wishing everyone a happy new year." Neutral, clear, impossible to twist. Then something unexpected happened. My brother Ethan texted me privately. "Hey, can we talk?" I hadn't heard from him in months. I called him right away. His voice was hesitant, softer than I remembered. "I don't agree with what Mom did," he said. Thanksgiving it felt off. But Christmas, that's when everything made sense. "What do you mean?" I asked, holding my breath. "I think I spent so long trying to keep the peace," he admitted. "I didn't see how much damage she was doing." His voice cracked. "I don't think you're crazy, Vivian, not even close." I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until the tears came. Still, the damage was done. My mother's lies had taken root, and Christmas was approaching like a dark cloud. I had no intention of going. Until Aunt June called. "She's telling everyone you're too fragile to be around family," she said. "That you're skipping Christmas because you can't handle conflict." That was the final straw. I decided if they were going to keep lying about me, they were going to have to do it while looking me in the eye. On Christmas Eve, I arrived at my parents' house just after dinner had begun. I wore a simple black coat, my hair tied back, my face calm. When I stepped through the front door, it was like someone had cut the music. Conversations halted. My mother's smile froze. My father choked on his bourbon. Jenna blinked like she'd seen a ghost. "Hey," I said casually, pulling off my scarf. "Merry Christmas." Before my mother could react, I turned and stepped aside. Behind me stood my guest, my grandmother, her mother. My mother's face went white. They hadn't spoken in over a decade after a vicious falling out. My mother had tried to erase her from our lives. But I never cut contact. When Grandma heard what had happened at Thanksgiving, she was horrified. When I invited her to Christmas, she didn't hesitate. "Oh my," Grandma said as she stepped inside. "It's been ages. What lovely decorations, dear." My mother looked like she might collapse. Dinner was painfully awkward. Grandma was all polite commentary and subtle jabs. She tasted the stuffing and said brightly, "Is this store-bought? Tastes very consistent." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't need to. My presence and hers said enough. They wanted me erased, but that night I took up space, and they couldn't look away. The days after Christmas were filled with noise texts, voicemails, and cryptic posts from relatives who had clearly heard another twisted version of the story. The message was clear: my mother was doubling down. According to her, I had staged a cruel ambush. I brought my grandmother to humiliate her. I weaponized the holidays and proved how unstable I truly was. It would have been laughable if it didn't sting so much. I stayed silent, not out of weakness but out of clarity. I had said and done enough. The truth didn't need my defense, it just needed space. Still, I knew the narrative wouldn't die on its own. My mother was a master at shaping perception. And when she lost control, she didn't apologize, she discredited it. If she could paint me as emotionally unstable, she could avoid looking at what she'd actually done. I found myself back in my apartment, sitting in the soft light of the Christmas tree, the world quiet for once. That's when I made the decision. I texted the family group chat again, just one more message. "Hey everyone, just to clarify, I'm okay. No breakdowns, no drama, no need for concern. I've simply decided to stop pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Hope your new year starts with honesty, peace, and boundaries. Mine will. And then I let go. That message landed like a stone dropped in still water. The ripples spread quickly. Some people went silent. Others responded awkwardly. A few surprisingly responded with support. But the most unexpected reply came from Ethan. "Hey, thanks for being brave. Want to grab coffee sometime?" We met up a few days later at a quiet cafe tucked between old brick buildings in downtown Asheville. It was cold and gray outside, but the little cafe was warm with the scent of cinnamon and espresso. Ethan looked different, older, tired. But when he smiled, it felt genuine. "I never really saw it before," he said. "I think I just wanted to believe Mom's version because it was easier." I nodded slowly. "I get it. She's good at making people feel like questioning her is betrayal," he added. I gave a bitter laugh. "Yeah, I've felt that since I was 12. We sat in silence for a bit, not awkward, just full, honest. Then Ethan looked at me, more serious. "You're not crazy, Vivian. You never were. What you did, it took guts." My throat tightened. I didn't know I still needed that validation, but I did. "She always made you the problem," he said. "But this Christmas, I finally saw it. You didn't ruin anything. You just stopped covering for her." That's when I realized something important: my mother's power was slipping. Not just because I spoke up, but because others were starting to see her clearly. A few days later, my phone rang again. It was her. I almost didn't answer. But something inside me, curiosity, closure, maybe both, made me pick up. Her voice was cold, measured. "We need to talk. In person." "About what?" "You humiliated me." There it was. Not "you hurt me." Not "let's talk about what happened." Just "you embarrassed me." "Sunday dinner," she said. 6 o'clock. Be there." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a moment, stunned by her complete lack of self-awareness. But then Aunt June called. "You don't have to forgive them," she said. "But you deserve to say it to their faces. Make them hear it." And just like that, I knew I would go. Not for them. For me. Sunday evening came faster than I expected. I drove through the quiet Asheville streets, my hands steady on the wheel, my mind surprisingly clear. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was done. When I stepped into my parents' house, the air felt heavy, like something unspoken had already settled into every corner of the room. My father stood near the end of the long dining table, hands clasped a little too tightly. My mother sat at the head of the table, posture rigid, arms crossed, her mouth drawn into a hard line. Jenna sat scrolling through her phone like none of this involved her. Ethan looked up when I entered. He gave me a faint nod. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" my mother said, her voice cutting through the silence. I tilted my head. "Which part are you mad about? Canceling the turkey? Bringing Grandma to Christmas? Or the fact that people stopped believing your version of the story?" "You're so dramatic," she spat. My father tried to intervene. "Your mother's hurt, Vivian, and you've done nothing but make her look bad." "She made herself look bad," I said, calm and clear. "I just stopped covering for her." My mother's face flushed deep red. "The truth," she hissed. "You mean your version of events, because in mine you abandoned your family. You refused to move on. You lashed out over a simple misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I echoed, my voice sharpening. "You uninvited me. You let me pay for a dinner you knew I wasn't welcome to. Then you told people I was unstable. That's not misunderstanding, that's manipulation." "You embarrassed me," she said, practically shaking, "in front of every sign." Then Ethan spoke. "Mom," he said softly but firmly, "you did exclude her. You told us she wasn't coming. You let her pay for everything. That was wrong." She turned to him, eyes wide. "Oh, don't you start too." But Ethan didn't flinch. "No, you crossed the line. You always do when someone calls you out." Dad shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should have handled it differently." "What does that mean?" Mom snapped. He hesitated, then looked at me. "Maybe Vivian has a point." The room went silent. I took a breath and looked directly at her. "You didn't just leave me out. You tried to discredit me. You called relatives and said I was having a breakdown. Why?" She opened her mouth but said nothing. "Why, Mom?" I pressed again. Finally, she whispered, "Because I was embarrassed." The words slipped out like she hadn't meant to say them. Her eyes darted toward mine, uncertain now. For the first time, she didn't look furious, she looked exposed. I didn't know what to say when people asked where you were, she muttered. It snowballed. I didn't want to look like the bad guy. So you made me the bad guy, I said quietly. She didn't respond. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Jenna, silent until now, muttered, "Wow," under her breath. My father looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Ethan sat still, jaw clenched. And just like that, the room changed. The illusion cracked. The air shifted. I stood up. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need an apology. I don't even think you're capable of giving a real one. But I need you to understand I'm done." My mother flinched like I'd hit her. "Wait, no," she said quickly. "You don't get to walk away like that." "You did this," I said firmly. "You shut me out, and when people noticed, you rewrote the story. You made me the villain because you couldn't handle being wrong." I turned to my father. "I appreciate that you tried, but you let it happen. And that hurt too." He looked down, saying nothing. Jenna finally looked up, eyes damp. "I should have said something sooner." Ethan nodded. "Me too." It didn't fix anything. But it mattered. And I walked out of that house lighter than I'd felt in years. Not victorious, just free. In the weeks that followed, the silence from my mother was oddly loud. She didn't call. She didn't apologize. Instead, she sent hollow messages every few days. "Can we move past this? Family is everything. I know you didn't mean to hurt anyone." I left every message unread. Not to be cruel, but because I had nothing left to give. Aunt June checked in often. Her support stayed steady, like a quiet anchor in the storm. And then there was Grandma. A week after that final dinner, she mailed me a handwritten letter. It was short and warm. She said she was proud of me. That I stood up for myself with grace. That sometimes choosing peace meant letting go, even when it hurt. I read her words 3 times before placing the letter in my desk drawer. I knew I'd want to return to it later. But the biggest surprise came from Ethan. One evening in mid-January, he sent me a simple message, "Coffee?" We met at that same cafe in West Asheville. No drama, no pressure, just 2 siblings trying to find something real in the rubble. We talked for nearly 3 hours. "I think I spent my whole life trying to keep the peace," he said, stirring his tea. "But I didn't realize how much peace you'd already been sacrificing to keep us comfortable." I nodded. "I know. I used to think if I was just useful enough, kind enough, they'd see me." He looked away, jaw tight. "I think Mom saw you, but not as a daughter. As someone to manage." We both went quiet. There was no dramatic forgiveness that day, no magic fix, just understanding, and that was enough. As I walked back to my apartment that night, the winter air crisp against my face, I realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying the weight alone. If you've ever been the scapegoat in your own family, the one who sees the dysfunction while everyone else clings to the illusion, you know that ache, that quiet grief, that doubt that whispers, "Maybe I am the problem." But you're not. You're the one brave enough to name the truth. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to play the role they assigned you. The empty chair at their Thanksgiving table next year, that won't be my shame. That will be my peace. And if this story sounds like yours, if you've been silenced, blamed, or erased, know this: you are not alone. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's survival. It's strength. It's choosing yourself, finally. So choose peace, choose truth, choose. And if this story resonated with you, like, share, and leave a comment. Tell your story. You never know who needs to hear it. Because silence keeps us isolated. But truth connects us. Vivian Blake's journey may be over. But maybe yours is just beginning.